Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders. I am Fitz, and we've got the A-team for you, and I'm thrilled to have Mr. John Kurtz as our guest this week. I couldn't think of anyone better to have following that fiasco at the Bill. What a fiasco. It was just a stunner, I guess. But we pre-booked that, so I guess I'm pretty smart. That's the show. We're out. Big B, Ryan Gilbert, and Cole Carmody all together here to discuss K-State sports. And let's just start with the simple question. John, what was your initial reaction to Saturday night's game, a 24-21 loss to Army?
Well, I wish I could say it was like a complete and total shock, but I mean, based on what we saw the week before against North Dakota, it was just more of the same. And even, I would actually make the case, and Chris Kleiman kind of came in with a defense in the postgame press conference of what happened. And hey, there was a lot of fluky things and the defense wore down. And I know a lot of fans have been frustrated with scheduling the game, which, I mean, I get it. I was critical of them scheduling this game when it popped on the schedule. Like, this was always kind of a disaster waiting to happen. There were fluky things. All of that stuff is true. But based on what you had already put out there this season, your body of work is just going to negate any kind of real excuse making after that one, or any blaming it on the fluky stuff that did happen. Like, you had no room for error because of the performance against North Dakota, where you frankly should have lost that game. And obviously what happened against Iowa State. Now, I know Iowa State looks like a pretty good team, but kind of the same deal that we've been wanting to see out of this team. Do you have toughness? Do you have guys who can just put their head down and make a play when you really need to go make a play? And that just didn't happen throughout that game on Saturday. I think back to like the last fourth down that Army had when it was 21-17. It was like a 4th and 4, and Austin Romaine, who's supposed to be your All-American linebacker, shoots through in the backfield, takes a rough angle, gets kind of deked by the backup Army quarterback. They get the first down, and inevitably they march on to score, and that's the game. It's just like moments like that. They don't have anybody that's getting them over the hump by making plays when they really need to, and they're just too sloppy. Then it's like Avery Johnson throws a freaking dart down the field to Jerron Tibbs, who for the second straight game in a 2-minute drill drive got to have it that they need. He drops a pass that would have been like a 40, 50-yard gain. I mean, they overcame it against North Dakota. They couldn't against Army. So a lot of the same problems are there, even if they did play a little bit better and even if there were weird things going on. So they just got a lot of issues, and I don't really know where it goes from here. I mean, I think the floor is pretty low on this season as far as what could happen.
Big B, give me some more of your thoughts. I know you did the post-game podcast with Cole and Monty Spiller, but what was your initial takeaway from that game?
Yeah, I'm with John. It's a lot of sloppiness, but you guys know where I stand on it. Just not physical enough. Look, this is a team that I know they're tough. I know they're well disciplined, but if K-State is the kind of football team that a lot of us thought they were going to be, you should be able to line up and stop and just run the ball whenever you want. Obviously, you got to mix in some stuff. They're not just a pushover. I'm not trying to say that. But you should be able to run the football with a lot of success. You should also be able to stop them. And I know Chris Kleiman made, like you mentioned, John, he came up with a lot of reasons on why, things happen the way they happen. But again, you're allowed to stop them. I mean, nobody says that, because all these things happen that they just have to continue to march down the field 3 and 5 and 7 and 2 yards at a time. You are allowed to stop them. And I just didn't buy that. And, I respect Coach a lot. I really do. I think he's a great coach, but I thought he let his guys off the hook. And he just could have just said, we have to be better. We just didn't stop them, because I'm going to say this. Army isn't going to go on all of these drives against all of these football teams the rest of the season. They're not going to be on the field for 41 straight plays against other teams, regardless of what happens in that football game. That's just not going to happen. Kansas State has to find a way to get off the field and be better. Just not physical enough.
Okay. Cole?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the things that you guys have said. And the more I've had time to think about this game, I think a few things are true, right? Like initially after the game, I was not really buying the excuses. I'm still not buying the excuses, but we can, say that there were fluky things that happened in this game, and K-State didn't make enough plays to win. Both of those things can be true. The more I've gone back and watched that onside kick, guys, I'm still not of the belief, regardless of what any coach will tell you, that that was a play that the Army kicker had in the back of his mind. He was going to kick it as hard as he possibly could right at a guy. If he did that, and that is, then he should do that every time. If he can do that, he should do that every single time. That was a fluky play. That can be said, but it can also be said that, okay, well, maybe be ready for the onside kick. And even if they're all ready for the onside kick, who's to say they even recover it? I'm not sure they do, because that was one of the more crazy plays I've seen. And, I do our Tale of the Tape where I break down the plays, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that, because there's some interesting things to look at. But so, like, you can admit that it was a fluky game while also saying, as you said, Big B, K-State did a lot of things wrong, and they had opportunities to win the game. Both of those things can be true. And I saw a stat out there. I don't know how much stock I put into it. The SP plus, what was your win expectancy? They take all the analytics into perspective. K-State had a 70% win expectancy against Iowa State and a 77% win expectancy against Army, and they lost both of those games. And I don't know what that means, besides the fact that some guy out there puts data together and throws it in there. But I'm willing to take that for what it's worth. And yeah, it's not good right now for K-State, and they have a lot of things to clean up. So they have to get that. They have to get that righted, because Friday looms extremely large.
Gills, I saved the sexiest for last. It's your turn.
Cole, I would push back just a little bit on that play on special teams being a fluke. I was messaging with a former K-State kicker, and if you look at the plant foot, this is obviously outside of my pay grade. You look at the plant foot of the Army kicker, usually that's supposed to be behind the football. If you are trying to drill it and you're trying to hit somebody close up, your plant foot's going to be in front of the football, which it was. So regardless, even if you were squared up and ready to field that, the odds of you catching a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in your chest are they're still pretty low. But to have your back turned, all the front line to have its back turned, there is really no excuse for that. There is no explanation for that. But only thing I'll add, Big B, Cole, John, you guys, brought up some great points. Only other thing I would include here is, Fitz, what was the story at the end of the day of that Iowa State game? It was fourth downs, offensively and defensively. Now, Kansas State, to its credit, on offense was able to move the chains a couple times, right, against Army, but 6 of 7 for the Army offense. That's why you lost the game, and you lost it because your defense couldn't get off the field. But, Big B, like you said, that is your problem. You have no excuse not to get off the field. I don't care if Army's bread and butter is to pick up, 2 or 3 yards. On fourth down, you should have the manpower to absolutely man up and stop them from gaining 24 inches.
Well, this was a amazing string of events that took place. And, a lot of fans were upset when Chris Kleiman said it was almost bad that we had the kick return for a touchdown. Folks, he's right. If that is instead a 50-yard touchdown drive taking 5 plays, K-State probably wins that game.
Yeah.
If all these other things don't go right in line, if they have a big play, if Army has a big scoring play, they break a long run, K-State might win that game, because then they'll possess the ball. K-State gets it back. It was just an amazing grouping of events. And again, I've shared the stat on other venues today, but we can't find any official record about number of plays and a half. But due to my friend Grok, we're on a first name basis, AI research, there is no game post World War II in college football that a team has had fewer plays than Kansas State did in that half. No half of football has featured 13 or fewer games or fewer plays than that one. So it was just this weird string of things that all connected. And again, they had the kickoff return and then the the attempted assassination by football with a laser dart. And that led to, as Big B said, 41 straight offensive plays for Army. The K-State defense couldn't get off the field even when they did get off the field. And they got off the field by giving up points, and then they had to come back and try to do it again. So it was just a weird, strange thing, but it happened. And it didn't just happen in a vacuum. It happened because of things you did. And, you know, to put it in terms fans might understand, this defense doesn't have anyone that can go get a bucket. You need to hit the shot at the buzzer. Who's going to do it? They don't have that guy right now. They have no one that can make that play that's going to decide a game. We saw an opportunity to tackle the quarterback, who I think has already won the Heisman, and they actually pushed him into the end zone. It was just this kind of ongoing string of things, but it was a frustrating day at the Bill, no doubt. Now, John, my concern is, do they recover from this? It's a short week. Chris Kleiman mentioned at Monday's press conference, they're beaten up. The defensive line in particular. Boy, this is a big task now to go on the road to play a Big 12 team, one that's filled with confidence by scheduling Bill Snyder style. They played a couple of really crappy teams and won. So do you think they can bounce back from this?
It's a great question. I mean, it's the $1 million question right now. And I'm kind of sick of the excuses. Now, I think a part of the reason that Chris Kleiman is doing this and talking about it again is because, like, I don't think he feels like he has a locker room where he can come out and be fire and brimstone in the press conference and really get after him. And that's a part of the problem. Like, I think this crop of talent that they really had to work hard to go get, whether it was high school recruiting or through the portal, they won some really tough battles for these kids. They're paying them a lot of money. It feels like, to me, I mean, even since 22, when Kleiman won the Big 12 championship, the environment was still a little bit different then. It's changed a lot in the last few years. Feels to me like there's a coaching staff that just, one, I think is a little bit stale, but two, feels like they can't really push this locker room full of guys as much as they need to be right now. Because I love what you said, Fitz, about like they don't have someone who can just go get a bucket. That's exactly what it is. Like, they've got a lot of athleticism and skill, but they don't have a lot of toughness or guys that are just going to put their head down and go make a freaking play. And, you know, even last year, like Brendan Mott, Austin Moore, like guys like that, they've just sort of trickled out of the program the last few years, and they don't have a lot of that right now. You know, even the excuse making about Army, like with the defense being tired, what lost K-State the game? And I was going nuts as this was happening. What lost K-State the game is with a 13-0 lead, K-State's defense gave up a 2-minute drill touchdown to Army with a backup quarterback. You're come on, man. Like, that's about as bad as it gets. There's not a more advantageous situation you could be in as a defense. So I know that Kleiman, I think this is all very calculated from Chris Kleiman. He feels like he can't go and just say that. But that's what I would love to be hearing. I would love if they felt like they had a locker room capable of handling that, because then I would think, well, maybe they can really get this thing turned around and at least, you know, hit your kind of typical 7-5, 8-4 Chris Kleiman sort of season. Because I mean, I'm just not willing to talk about anything beyond that. Have they had some bad luck? Yes. Dylan Edwards has played one snap this entire season. George Fitzpatrick has not been out there. Ryan Davis, who they were raving about as the best defensive lineman of the bunch, has not played yet because of injury issues. Like, they've had some bad luck, no doubt. But like, it's been excuse after excuse. And now Kleiman seems to already be preloading. Well, it's going to be hot weather on a short week and our defense was already gassed. It's like, bro, just go play and win a football game. Like, you should be playing and winning football games right now. And obviously, you know, and I don't want to go this route too far, but college football is so volatile in 2025 that you do have to worry about, okay, well, after this, playing 4 games, if you lose and you're 1-3, what's happening at the 4-game mark with decisions kids may or may not be making? And are you going to be able to keep guys engaged if they feel like they don't have a shot at the Big 12 championship? I guess the nice thing about this is that it's still a non-conference game, so you would still technically only be 0-1 in the Big 12. You can still push like, hey, we got a lot to play for, but you know, we see what happened with Florida State last year, with Oklahoma State last year. You can make a quick turnaround as well because of the dynamics in the sport right now. But unfortunately, the floor on these ceilings is a lot lower than it used to be just because of everything at play with how the sport is structured right now.
Brien Hanley, you were in a locker room in a different era. mostly because you're old, but also there was no NIL. There was none of that. And I'm aware that you're not in the current environment, but it's got to be completely different. The players have so much power now that they didn't before. Oh, you're going to yell at me today? I'm out. I mean, it's just kind of a sad commentary on where we're at, that locker rooms can be this fragile, filled with kids making a lot of money.
I mean, it is. I don't think it's a football thing. I think it's kind of a society thing.
Good point.
I think it's more that than necessarily just a football or even a college athletics thing. But you're right. You know, I mean, again, I hate always being the guy that back in my day, but it's true. Back in my day, you know, you could cuss guys out. You could get an inch from their face and call them everything under the sun. And guys just had to take it, and either you folded or you stood up. Now, if you even do that, you might get sued, which is crazy to think about, but that literally may happen. But past that, John's right as far as the excuses. And I know you guys are the same. It's just, when are we just going to go win a football game? When do we just say, you know what? They were more physical than us, but you know what? We're going to go out this next game and we're going to be the more physical football team, and we're going to go and do everything under our power to go win the game. It's okay to admit when you got beat by somebody, and you don't have to. I mean, I know it's not necessarily excuse train, but it sounds like it's kind of the excuse train. It's just like, hey, man, don't prerequisite you losing because whether you think you're going to or not. That's just not the way to handle this, in my opinion. It's not the way to handle this. You're in a free fall. Everybody sees you're in a free fall. I don't think the way to get out of this thing is to prerequisite way we may fall even further. I don't think you should do that. I think you have to come out swinging, you know, come out fighting, you know, and if a guy wants to leave, then let him leave. If a guy wants to transfer because maybe they're not getting the job done and you have to cuss them out, then just let them go. Okay. And go get somebody else. It's just the way that it is. But man, all this back and forth and the nonsense about what's going on, it's not a mystery. Kansas State has been out-physicaled by 3 football teams this year. That's it. If you want to win, you have to change that. I don't think it's a big mystery, and yet it seems like the coaching staff just doesn't want to say that. I don't know, and maybe they can't because John might be right. Maybe the locker room is that fragile. I don't know. It's weird to me, though.
Cole, you do coach this younger generation, various sports. Is it different than even when you were playing?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't even that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not even close to the same thing. And you guys are talking, and all I can think about is, you know, my real world experience from coaching to teaching, and you cannot have those frank conversations anymore, because the minute that you do, regardless of the level that you're either coaching or let's be honest, coaching is teaching. You know what? These are still 18 to 23-year-old men. That's their job, is to teach them, only they're teaching them in the game of football. And so when you teach them something and you correct them on something and they don't like to hear it, or they don't like the way that you put it, it doesn't matter if they're making $2 million or if they're not making any money. If you're talking about high school, you know, kids will do what kids will want to do. It is a society we live in where the people in power don't have the power when it comes to the older generation dealing with the younger generation. And you know, it's not just K-State, right? Like I don't want people listening to this to think that this is a singular K-State problem, because this is something that's going on in every single locker room across the country. If you don't think that these same conversations were being had with Utah last year, I mean, it's a very similar situation. The only difference is they lost their quarterback, right? And K-State has theirs, but there were talks about, oh, well, the head coach might not come back. Well, where does the program go from here? It's the first year in a new conference. So this is not just a singular K-State problem. With that being said, it is a K-State problem, and they have to address it and they have to fix it. So, you know, it's one bad loss to Army. It's one not very good looking win in North Dakota, and it's a 3-point loss to a team that might end up being pretty good. There has been more signs of bad than there have been signs of good. All of that can be true, but I'm still willing to wait on judgment for the rest of the season until this Friday night game, because, I think we're going to learn really the true colors of this team on Friday, because it feels like their backs are against the wall and they're in a corner, and we're going to find out if they're tough enough to fight out of that corner or if they're willing to accept mediocrity.
Gills, I know you're fired up to get 2 nights in a hotel room with me again. I've missed you since Dublin. This is enormous, isn't it? This trip, I've come to believe, and today's press conference was just flat. From Kleiman to the players, it kind of scared me. I think this is it. If they don't win this game, it's going to be an absolute disaster of a season. Am I overreacting?
Well, first and foremost, Braden Lofton, I thought, was pretty solid on Monday. And with his answers, he said this team is, needs to go out and not play to lose, but rather play to win. And I couldn't agree more. You've got to go assert your dominance, especially over teams like North Dakota and Army that haven't been the case. But even a Big 12 foe that you're supposedly on level playing field with, go out and outplay them. But I personally believe there's not much change that can be made here when you're on a short week on the road, given everything that's happened. After the bye week, you come home, open up Big 12 play. That's when, if you don't see the true improvement, you might be toast. But if you see improvement here over Arizona, I'm not going to fully just buy into this team once again. So it's going to be a tough week for Kansas State. Chris Kleiman mentioned, Big B, you said the prerequisite excuse. Is that what you said, right? Like the weather in Arizona is going to be hot for the Arizona Wildcats as well. You can't warm up to it, or I guess cool down to the weather, right? You just got to go out and play in it. But, guys, Cole, what you were talking about earlier, guys have to be coachable, and you have to be able to accept or take criticism, right? Like Fitz, Grant, and John are new writers. They've made a few mistakes when they were hired onto the site. I edited them. I let them know what they, maybe the grammar was wrong here or there, and they've gotten a lot better. And there's some damn good writers for our site. I'm happy they're on board, but they were able to accept being told, hey, this needs to be done differently. Well, if you're making $500,000 a year, well, what's this assistant linebackers coach making up something here? Why is he telling me what I need to do? Right? I've got my money. I'm a hell of a player. Look at my NIL paycheck. So that, you've got to get guys that are wanting to be coached and wanting to be told, what they need to be better at and what they can correct.
As a old newspaper guy, I'm always looking for that image that captures a game. It was a big part of how you sold newspapers. And I honestly, I didn't like the images from any of our providers from this game until today. I found the image that I think defines the difference in this game. And I'm going to pop it up here if it works. This was what the image I put on my Power Talk after the press conference. Open. It's not going to do it. There it goes. Look at the look on his face. He is looking at Austin Romaine and someone's next to him like, I'm running over your ass and you can't stop me. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, it's exactly what he did. He just took care of it every time they needed a first down. That kid, who wasn't even the starting quarterback, did it. And as far as I can tell, there's no one on the K-State roster that is equipped to do that right now. They don't have that fire. They don't have that, I'm going to make this play. And nothing's stopping me. Look in their eyes. And again, I agree with everything else you guys are saying. Chris Kleiman has gotten into a bad habit of speaking things into existence, whether it's jet lag, whether it's the triple option, or now it's the heat. Quit giving your team a crutch to lean on and say, none of that matters. We're going to go win this game. But I don't think I could coach in this era. And John, I'm afraid that this is going to run out the clock on Chris Kleiman. And I know a lot of fans are like, yeah, good change. He has been very successful for anyone following Bill Snyder. Don't take that for granted, which a lot of people do. But this whole era right now, college football, is completely different than what anyone started the profession in. And I'm not sure he's adapting as well as I thought he would.
Yeah, it is. It is a little surprising, right? Because first of all, when he was hired, that's two parts of this discussion. One, Chris Kleiman has been wonderful for K-State post Bill Snyder. The success that he has had, proving that someone else can win here and doing it a different way. And that was the point that I was going to make initially. There is like he was the perfect guy at the right time for Bill Snyder, because K-State had swung so far in the opposite direction that we're talking about right now, where it was like just all toughness, no talent. I mean, they clearly needed a reset then, and Chris Kleiman has been like players coach, and it felt like that style was really, really working. But now it feels like, the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction, and a lot of that is because of forces that have been outside of Chris Kleiman's control. So I would have initially thought, if you would have told me a couple of years ago, like, hey, it's going to be an even more like players have the power, you need to be friendly to the players kind of environment, that Kleiman, I would have thought Kleiman would be great for that, because that was kind of why he was brought in a large way with Bill Snyder, patience wearing thin with the way he was running the program in 2018. But you're totally right. It just doesn't feel like he has the fire for it right now, And I mean, I'm not even saying I really blame him that much. Like, I get it. It takes a different kind of coach and a different kind of dude right now. I know this is maybe not totally timely because they had a rough loss on Saturday, but like, Kenny Dillingham is like the kind of guy that I feel like you need these days, who's a year younger than me, by the way. So like, that's I mean, that's the type of dude that I feel like is cut out for this right now and has a better understanding. And he is kind of fiery, but he seems to know how to manage that. And it's still really early in his career. We'll see. Maybe it was just a one-year wonder sort of thing. But from a demeanor standpoint, that's sort of what strikes me as the type of guy that could figure it out. And so I know everybody's mind immediately starts drifting to, Colin Klein and how well that could work out. And I certainly understand why. But it's just going to be really interesting to monitor how that progresses throughout the year, because I know it's been no secret. Like, people feel like Kleiman was not a guy that was going to coach into his, 70s or 80s, not going to be around for that. Like, no, that's not a secret, right? But is this now accelerating that timeline? And even just, leadership wise at K-State, I don't know. It just, I don't want to be too reactionary and panicky, because most of the time it's not as bad as you think. It's not as good as you think. And I've been trying to remind myself of that, but it's alarming when you go look at like Kansas and Missouri, places with younger, more dynamic leadership. I think like athletic department on down, with just people who are really hungry and willing to lean into what the protocols and boundaries of the sport are right now. I mean, Travis Goff, say what you will about the guy, he has been aggressive as hell. He's gotten the stadium done. He's got Lance locked up. He's got a $300 million cash cow coming in from David Booth. Like, it's scary to see what they're doing. And Gene Taylor, I think, again, has been great at K-State, but at this stage in his career, staff around him, a lot of people who've been around for a long time, like, is this the group that K-State needs to push it forward right now? And football, to me, seems pretty emblematic of where all that's at the university.
Very well said. I think Colin Klein is going to eventually be a really good head football coach. But if you're afraid Chris Kleiman isn't tough enough, that ain't your guy to be tough. I mean, he's going to throw some golly jeepers at him and really shake him up. And I'm not being insulting to him. He literally would. He doesn't curse at all. So it's, I get a little exhausted by that. It's not like Texas A&M has blown it up under his offense either. So let's live with what we got. But what we don't have, Big B, is an ass kicker in that staff. Connor Riley's now with the Dallas Cowboys. And I think they miss him. I think they miss the one guy that is willing to mother F you to your face to get you going. And he had a sense for when and who he could do it to. If you're an offensive lineman, you better be prepared for that. But now they don't have it really at all. And Coach True's gone too, who was another yeller that I don't think he has colorful language, but when he yelled in that voice, you heard him.
Yeah, I mean,
that's too soft.
Yeah, and again, it's not so much that you got to call somebody every name under the sun. Look, I can throw the story out there. Mark Mangino was my head coach, or not my head coach, my position coach at K-State. And, You know, if he wasn't calling you anything under the sun, you would think he was sick. You would think there was a problem with him. So that's just literally how the man talked on a day-to-day basis. Having said all of that, it doesn't mean just because you don't talk like that doesn't mean you can't still get after people. So that's where the difference is. They just need somebody to take the reins and just be in charge and hold somebody accountable, you know, and that's the main thing is if they talk about it being a player's locker room, and Coach Kleiman has repeatedly talked about it's a player's locker room. It's a player's locker room. Well, where's the guy? And I know I've said this before, and I'm sure it's wearing thin on people. It's just the truth. Like, where's the ass? Like, where's the guy that's just going to – and there needs to be more than one, by the way. Where's the 5 to 10 guys that are in the locker room that are getting in people's face, that are going to do anything within the rules and maybe just outside the rules to win a football game? Like, well, who's that guy? Because you can't have a locker room full of choir boys. I'm sorry, and no offense to choir boys, or maybe it is offense to choir boys. I don't know. But you can't have a locker room full of those guys. You just can't. It doesn't work in college football. It doesn't work in football, period. You just can't have that. You have to have guys that are going to live on that edge and even right over that edge that are going to demand, even without getting in your face necessarily, but they are going to demand that people step up and hold everybody accountable, even if it's just from how hard they play and the things that they do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe they have those guys. I'm not saying they don't, but on the field, we don't see it. And that's the only thing that I can go by because we're not in practice. We're not with them every day. But those guys that I'm talking about, you could see that on the field. You saw it every single week. You saw those guys on the field. You don't see that right now. And to me, that's one of the bigger problems as well. If it's a players-led locker room, well, who's leading? And how are you leading? And what's being accomplished? Because what we see right now, it's not it. Doesn't mean it can't happen, guys. So I don't want to say that, oh, well, this is what it is and it can't change. I don't agree with that. I think it can, but somebody just has to do it at some point.
Cole, you're the closest thing we have to a choir boy. So, let's be honest here. You're the guy, and every group of, round table needs it. You prefer to be positive. I prefer to be a psycho. And that's good. It's wonderful to have that on the staff. But what does a player-led locker room mean to you?
It's a great question. I think a player-led locker room is just simple, guys. It's take accountability. Yeah. And, I think that as someone who, if you are a player in that locker room, you have to look at how can things change, right? Like I try to, everything I do, instead of looking at it from a, here is the problem. Let's look at the problem and talk about the problem until we're blue in the face. Well, find a solution. Right. And I think every single person inside of Veneer is trying to find a solution, because if they didn't do that in their career, they wouldn't be at the spot where they are. Every single coach, every single player has had problems arise before. They've dealt with adversity. For some, maybe, specifically talking about the players, they haven't dealt with adversity until right now. Avery Johnson hasn't dealt with a lot of adversity in his life. The first time he dealt with adversity on the football field was at BYU. Because the season before, he didn't deal with any adversity. He was put in positions to be successful. He dealt with adversity against BYU and came back, was better for it, and then the team went downhill. And for some of these guys who weren't on that team, this is the first time in their entire football careers they're facing adversity. And I think after this group gets over that initial shock of, oh, crap, we're losing games, they have two choices. Like I said earlier, they can either accept that and look other places and try and get money. But as I've had people point out to me, unless you're putting up crazy stats, if you go 2-10, not very many guys are going to want you to play on your team next year. So you have to be good for the future of yourself and for the future of your team. And so, I think I get so frustrated, guys, because, fans are, as Big B always says, short for fanatic. I understand. you see a problem and you're frustrated by it. I get that. But I also think that listening to what the players say and judging them for the actual play on the field is how it should be. And if you're not happy with the 1-2 start, I don't blame you. But every game is self-contained. And, Gilbert, I know you don't agree with this, but I do think that if this team looks at it from a solutions aspect and comes up with solutions instead of dwelling on the past, they can still find a way to make it a successful season for them. That doesn't mean it'll be a successful season for everybody else. That doesn't mean it'll be a successful season by Chris Kleiman's standard, but they can still find a way to make it a successful season in their eyes. Cade Warner used to talk about that all the time. Just because we don't make it to the Big 12 championship doesn't mean it wasn't a successful season. That's not what people want to hear. I get that. But if they have that attitude of they can still have a successful season, then they can still do everything that the fans want them to do. And, that's a long-winded way of looking at it differently, but it starts within that locker room, and they have to just decide we're sick of losing. And when they decide that, they have enough talent to where they will be able to win some football games.
Gills, I'll give you an opportunity to reply to that vicious attack on you. I don't even know what he said, actually, after this. But John is on a schedule here. So, John, I'm going to give you a twofer here.
Okay.
First of all, give me your final thoughts on where this team is headed, what your fears are, and what your hopes are. What's, the good and the bad as this plays out. And also make sure you give us all of your you've got your Open for Business sign behind you, which is your newsletter, and do your advertising, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely check out the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com to get signed up. We got over 5,000 Big 12 fans that are doing it already. So it's totally free, twice a week to your inbox. John Kurtz on YouTube. I'm doing live streams Wednesdays and Sundays, sprinkling some others in throughout there as well. And then the 3-Mod podcast, of course, if you want to hear K-State specific content as well. So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting listening to Ryan talk about the Arizona game because, I tend to agree. Or maybe it was Cole that said, this is kind of the last stand. We got to find out what this team's made of. I mean, I agree. If you lose this game, again, that 4-game mark with the red shirts and all that means a lot. But even just beyond that, this team's confidence level, what happens if they lose again and they're 1-3? I just don't know if you can keep it together at that point. And the weird part about it is this game from what it means from a technical standpoint to your season is really next to nothing. I don't know what it's going to affect. You're going to have you're either going to win the Big 12 and I guess get into the playoff. Maybe the one thing Arizona would hurt is if you're going to rip off some huge run and win the Big 12 championship game, maybe you get left out as being one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions to get into the playoff if you've lost this game to Arizona too. But for all intents and purposes, because it's a non-con game, it doesn't matter a whole lot to the season, but it matters for everything from just a mentality standpoint with the team. You can't lose another game, and another game where you were at the beginning of the year a heavy favorite. You just can't have that happen. So yeah, my fear is that you wind up being Oklahoma State from last year, that you wind up being Florida State. And the scary part about that is if you start tracking back these teams that have lost in Ireland, Florida State did it last year. They went 2-10. Was it Scott Frost, Nebraska the year before that? I'm trying to remember. There maybe is a team in between there, but so many of these teams that have gone to Ireland and lost have had their seasons completely come undone. And you can absolutely see how that would happen with this team. Man, I guess the blueprint for success is that they do have a lot of talent. Avery Johnson was throwing the ball better than I think we've ever really seen him on Saturday. He was great. I still would like him to be the guy. One time I would love to see that look on Avery Johnson's face that you just showed with the Army kid to go knock someone over and get a 3rd and 4th and short, because this team is horrific in short yardage situations. But I digress. He's throwing the ball pretty well. And the receivers are getting open more often. Sucks that Jaron Bradley's out for a few weeks, but the receivers are getting open more often. I think they have legitimate weapons. If Dylan Edwards comes back, if George Fitzpatrick comes back, if Ryan Davis comes back and he's as good as they say that he has been, if the offensive line, gets a little healthier. I know JB Nelson had some issues and was out, and Enos was maybe just in case of emergency only sort of thing. If they can just get healthier and plug guys in and find a way to squeak out a win at Arizona, you can start to see how, all right, maybe we can build some momentum and start to actually get back toward having a respectable season here. I mean, I think that's kind of the path that you'd want to see it go. That's your best case scenario. But unfortunately, the floor is just so much lower than I would have ever thought that it could have been under a Chris Kleiman program right now. That had been his whole thing, right? He's a high floor guy. And suddenly, before it's even September 10th, we're sitting here talking about how it could be, all the way down in the basement. So, man, I hope for the best. I hope for the best, because this has been a drag. This has been just drama, injuries, and a lot of losses. No fun at all so far.
People are unhappy, but I'm happy you were here. I appreciate you giving us some time. If you're not watching John's lives, they're epic. I don't know how you do it, buddy. To talk that long in a room by yourself, interacting with virtual people, but it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that a ton. Great to chat with you guys, and have me on anytime. Good to see you.
That's John Kurtz. Go check him out on his channel, and he's pretty damn good at what he does. And he only does it part-time. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. Nope. What happened here? There we go. Hold on. Let me fill this. Extra camera. Boink. There. We'll put dude on screen, sleeping over there. I am afraid that, guys, that this is time for trouble. That this is the season right here. You got to go win this game. Gills, and we don't know much about Arizona either, do we? I mean, they really haven't played anyone. They've kicked ass. It'd be nice if our coaches at Kansas State would call plays in the same violent, destructive manner. We're going to kick your ass all the way out of the stadium, but no, we're going to run it on first and second down and then throw it short of the sticks.
Yeah, new coordinators out there in Tucson, but I mean they've played well offensively, 40 points per game at least, and then they haven't given up a touchdown yet on defense. So say what you want about the competition. Hawaii, I know they're probably not great, but Cole, I don't want to have like a rebuttal, but my only thing is I just have so little faith that you can really turn things around on a short week on the road. Of course, a win would be ground zero for turning around the season. I just, maybe it's more of an opinion here than a fact of what it would do for the season. I just don't have much confidence that this can get turned around. And, earlier I mentioned that Braden Lofton had some good things to say, but, by and large, not just the players, but, Kleiman as well, you would have liked to have seen some more fire there just on Monday in those press conferences. And they were just sort of kind of going on as if it was business as usual. And Tibbs was asked if anybody has stepped up in the locker room during these times, and he threw out a couple names: Avery Johnson, Toby Osunsomni, and Damian Elalio were brought up. And that's great. That's awesome that you have some leaders stepping up and being vocal during this time. But guys, Avery Johnson is a very fine young man who is not a yeller. Damian Elalio might be the nicest man that you'll ever meet in your life. He's a father. He's a great dude. I love Damian. Toby, I can maybe write that. Kansas kid, a little tougher. I can see that. But where are the a-holes in the room, for lack of a better term? And, Connor Riley, even if you are not an offensive lineman, if you're on the other half of the field in the practice facility and you just see that going on and you hear some of those words coming out of his mouth, all right, I don't want that to happen to me. Matthew Middleton here, Van Malone there, who no matter who it is, they're probably not going to say those words to me, but that's still going to set the tone. That's still going to set the standard for your locker room, for your practices. So somebody on the staff, a player, a lot of people talk about, well, what does a player-led locker room mean? Somebody at the end of the day, Rodney Magruder, Barry Brown, Jacob Pullen, somebody steps up, to give you some basketball guys. Somebody steps up who demands that respect. And right now, I'll give you guys the floor here. Who demands that respect? You can't come up with anybody.
I'll say, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that, what is being said to us as the media versus what is being said behind closed doors, like those two things are completely different.
Yep.
True.
And I just think that's important for people to keep in mind, because we can sit here and say, I agree. I wasn't there, but I have seen the videos. Like, yeah, it doesn't seem like this team is like, oh, we're going to go out there and we're going to win. People seem to want the Tim Tebow. I promise I'm going to give my heart every single play, and there's going to be nobody who outworks me. Like, okay, but you know what would happen if that happened in 2025? Fans would clown him for saying that. That's exactly what would happen. And so what these guys say to the media versus what they say behind closed doors, if it is the same thing, guys, then there's a problem, right? Like if that's the case, then there's a problem. But I just really do believe that there is other messaging. Maybe it's good messaging, maybe it's bad messaging. But I just want to caution folks who look at Chris Kleiman and they say, "Oh, he didn't get up there and say we suck." Like, what do you want him to say? So I think that they do want him to say that. I think that the messaging to the team and from the players, you would hope would be different. And if it's not, then again, there are obviously bigger issues at play.
I don't know that it has to be different, though. Transparency is a big thing these days. And so I don't know that it necessarily has to be. But you know what? Don't tell me anything. Go do it. Yeah. I really don't care what you say. You can say whatever you want. But how about you just go do it? How about you just show us what you're going to do? I wouldn't care if the locker room was as quiet and you could hear a field mouse fart in there. Fine. Let it be quiet. But
thank you for that.
But go show us something.
Yes.
So whether if the leader is super quiet or the leader is screaming at the top of his lungs, at some point somebody has to do something.
Yes.
And that's the only thing that really matters. And until somebody does something, all the talk on whether Coach Kleiman says this or does that or wants to be this, it'd be nice with transparency. But if you don't want to do that, okay, well then fine, but then do something. And that's the only thing that fans really care about. I mean, there's going to be crazos like myself that are going to want to say anything, but just go do something. Just go do something. And everything else will take care of itself, because you won't have to worry about the transparency. You won't have to worry about people questioning what's going on in the locker room. At some point, you just have to go do it, and everything else will take care of itself. We've talked a lot today about how it used to be and it is now, and all of those things are true. But the one thing that never changes is either you do it or you don't do it. That's always been the case. It always will be the case. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Either you show up and you go play and you go win, or you don't. And it's pretty much that simple. And I keep bringing it back. K-State just hasn't played well enough to win the games. Mm-hmm. And that's the bottom line. They haven't done enough. At some point, look, I think all of us would be happy if, oh man, K-State played a great game. They just got beat by a better team. That hasn't happened. And even with Iowa State, K-State didn't play a great football game. That wasn't a great football game that they played. We could live with that. We haven't been able to say that this year. And I think that fits. And guys, I think that's part of the problem, is that we haven't even been able to say that we've played a good game and we're 3 games in.
Agreed. It's just been lacking in every way. I mean, a little bit here, a little bit there, and it adds up to an L or a barely beating in North Dakota. Guys, I have a topic on my mind. I'm going to vent about it a little bit, and then I would just want you guys to pick it up and someone talk, because I don't know what the question would be. They moved back to a 4-man front in the offseason. We knew about this quite a while ago, and I wasn't sure if it was just for Iowa State or the season. It's the season. And Chris Kleiman went on to say, this is the defense Joe Klanderman is defensive coordinator, and I know. And we did the 3-man front for reasons within the Big 12, which was primarily speed and being able to spread the field on K-State, not being able to match up as the Wildcats. So I get why they did it, and I get why they flipped back. The irony, of course, being they would have been in a 4-man front Saturday no matter what. You don't want to run that 3-man front against an option offense like that. You talk about trouble, that would be it. So they moved to the 4-man front, and here's what I'm seeing. They're pretty sound. They're doing their job. For the most part, we've seen some back-end problems, which always happens with K-State for whatever reason. But they also seem like they're kind of going through the motions. yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be and this is what I'm supposed to do, but they haven't cut it loose yet. And I don't mean going to the wrong gap or doing someone else's job, which has been a problem. I mean, yeah, I'm supposed to rush the quarterback. Do it. Cut it loose. Play with some fury. It's been very mechanical for me. And I think that is an obstacle here that they can't overcome. The guys are trying to do things the right way.
Yeah.
Too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, all their focus is on don't F up, not I want to wreck this play. Thoughts?
So I love that. I totally agree with you. There was the great Kansas City Royals hitting coach Charlie Lau once told George Brett to try less hard, meaning you just go play. And that is exactly what this defense needs to do, guys. I think it's trust. You know, I thought about this a lot. And when you know where you're supposed to be, it's dependent on the next guy to know where he's supposed to be. You know what every single person on that defense is doing at all times. And so if there's even a hint of doubt that, you know, you're responsible for the B gap, but that defensive end is responsible for the C gap. If there's even a hint of doubt where, okay, well, I got to make sure that he doesn't go into the B gap, then we're both in the same gap. Because I'm going to tell you guys this right now, and I saw this happen, and we're going to talk about it in tail of the tape. There was a play, I want to say it was on a 4th down, where K-State rushed one more player than Army could block. Austin Romaine and Asa Newsome ran into the backs of each other. Instead of one going one way on the guard and the other going the other way and making the guard make a decision, they would have had a clean shot right at the quarterback on a 4th down. K-State would have got the ball. They went in the same place and ran into the back of one another because somebody screwed up. And I still think it's a process of learning the new defense and getting into the same spot and being assignment sound and having the eye discipline that Chris Kleiman talked about, right? But you don't have time to figure it out. And if you're going to make a mistake going 100,000 miles an hour and nobody will even know that you made a mistake. That's the problem, and that's where this defense needs to go. And that needs to be the messaging from Joe Kleinerman. Who cares if you screw up? Just go play with reckless abandon. And again, they can't get any worse, guys. Like, it's very difficult for that defense to get any worse. So if you're going to screw up playing hard. Big B, I'm sure that was a message that you were told a million times when you played, but it feels like when they screw up, and they're not playing 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I've said it. I'm pretty clear on it. Guys just aren't doing enough. And here's the thing. You play going 100 miles an hour, I don't care if you're in the wrong place or not. More times than not, you're going to go make plays. And I'm just talking about defense.
Yes.
You're going to go make plays even if you're in the wrong spot more times than not if you're going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm not saying you don't get burned. I'm not saying it doesn't screw up and can cause big plays going the opposite direction. But if you go 100 miles an hour, somebody is usually going to account for you, even if you're not in the right spot. And that's what doesn't get done enough. I don't know if it's a thing about learning the defense. If it is, if really we're talking about them learning the defense, I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but if guys really don't know the defense by now, we're 3 weeks into the season. We did a spring, we did a summer. That's another problem entirely, guys. I'll be honest with you. If they're having problems picking up where to go on defense, look, I make fun. Some of my best friends in this world play defense, and I make fun of them all the time that they weren't the smartest guys out there. But the guys aren't stupid. You know where to go. I mean, we're not talking about elementary football. If they don't, and I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but if they really don't know and can't figure out where to go this late, and I say this late, I mean, you had a spring, you had a summer, you had an off. We were 3 weeks in. That's a problem, man. That really is a problem. I don't think it's that. I think it's what Cole's saying. I think it's just guys and Fitz, you too. I just don't think guys are going hard enough. Yep. They're not cutting loose. And maybe they're worried about being where they're supposed to be. But my thing is, okay, if I'm here, I'm just going to do this and not worry about what somebody else is doing. Just worry about what you are supposed to do. If somebody else screws up, then let the coach yell at them, and we'll figure it out from there. But don't let that affect me and what I'm going to do. Just take accountability for yourself and let everything else fall where it may be. But if they've got guys out there who are like, look, I got to make sure, like you said, Cole, I got to make sure he's in the B gap because I got to be in the C gap. And if he's not there, if they got guys like that, then get them out of the game. Just get them out. You can't be doing that, man. That's terrible.
You guys hear me out for just a sec.
Okay. Here we go.
Kansas State does not lose to Army if it has good eye discipline against North Dakota. All week, all the preparation, seemingly what we heard, was eye discipline. You got to have good eye discipline to beat this Army team after how poor it was against North Dakota. And to K-State's credit, eye discipline minus one trick play was pretty good against Army. Was it great? No, but that wasn't necessarily the reason for losing. But when you put so much emphasis on eye discipline, Big B, like you said earlier, this isn't maybe a direct excuse or distraction, but you had to put so much into this. Well, maybe you just forget how to hit a guy hard. You forget how to just go 100 miles an hour and go at 100%. So Kansas State, obviously, if K-State plays North Dakota and wins by 30, they're going to beat Army no matter what. Like, they'd be a better team. But if they just played smarter on defense against North Dakota, you can have much more of I wouldn't say normal game plan, because preparing for Army is different. That is a once in a couple season opportunity at least to prepare for Army. But if you can go focus on other things, then yeah, like you and Cole and Big B, you guys said, K-State's probably going to play a lot better when you're not thinking about what you're doing and you're going out and doing it. Another basketball example here, guys. Dean Wade, great example, flourishing in the NBA, was good at Kansas State. Don't get me wrong, but he was passing up shots and just was always kind of in his own head at times, and he was never unable to unlock his full potential.
Very good point. A lot of podcasts this week. There always are, but we're a day short in the week because K-State does play on Friday at Arizona down in Tucson. Gills and I will be there to cover it for you. Hopefully we'll have some guys doing a post-game podcast. Hopefully two of them are on this podcast right now. I'm not going to name any names. Make sure you check out the podcast. We're going to drop the the regular podcast, the PowerCat podcast, on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, the pregame show on Wednesday instead of Thursday, and the walkthrough with Monty Spiller hosted by Cole on Thursday instead of Friday. So everything's kind of shoved up a little bit. All of our other content will kind of stay in the same slots because it is a Friday game, and you probably want something to read before that Friday game. Some knowledge. We won't let Ryan Gilbert write then, but if we need knowledge, we'll turn to Big B or Cole. Me, if you need sarcasm.
What about Dude?
Dude's a hardworking man.
I see him.
This is Dude. Daphne's in the chair right next to him there, and they're stuffed. I don't know if it's a bear. It's not a bear. It's next to me. I'm glad they didn't shake it. It rattles, kind of like my head. Thanks for watching The Insiders. John Kurtz was fantastic. He always is. K-State is blessed to have guys like that covering their teams for the fans because, there's a lot of good ones out there, and I appreciate him taking the time to join us tonight. We'll talk to you next week on The Insiders. We'll probably be live again. We keep missing the lives. We need to be live.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.